early 1970, the Beatles broke up, and 9 months later, I was born. And to this day, I still kind of harbor some resentment, because I think my mother's to blame. I really think my mother's somehow involved in that. But I grew up within walking distance of here, actually, in West Philadelphia. And it was a little wood house called a row house with fake brick and fake shutters that were glued to the side. And in that context, I started designing buildings. That's me, by the way. I'm a cherry hot fudge sundae, if you don't know. And in this context, this is what I grew up in, right? So as a kid, I remember distinctly McDonald's released the first Happy Meal in 1979, and 3 days later, 3 Mile Island exploded. And somehow, I always thought that they were connected. I always thought that somehow... and right around that same time, my mother took me to see this building. This is the Beth Shalom Synagogue by Frank Lloyd Wright. It's the only Frank Lloyd Wright building in Philadelphia, and I encourage you all to see it if you can. But it was the first time that I realized that a building could be more than just a box. And I remember distinctly this memory of sitting inside that atrium and watching birds fly overhead and seeing their shadows trail along the floor. And I realized that buildings could be about something. They could be bigger than us. So I spent the next rest of my life, essentially, studying Mr. Wright and studying the designs of nature, and realizing that nature has a wealth of opportunities for us if we just open our eyes to it. But when I went to architecture school and I started learning about real construction, I had these questions, and I didn't like the answers I was getting. When I said, why would we knowingly build that way when we know that it's toxic? Why would we do that when we know that it's wrong? And the answer always was, because that's the way we've always done it. So nature was just this kind of casualty on the path to progress, and it didn't really work. This is my daughter. I know she's cute. You don't need to make noise. And I took her to see this net zero energy project that we did, and meaning that this building generates more energy than it consumes. And this project was a little unusual because the solar panels weren't on the roof, they were on the ground. Because it was a government project. It was a mess. But anyway, they're on the ground. And but you could play on them and you can climb on them. And she said, Daddy, what are these? I said, oh, honey, those are solar panels. They produce energy from the sun for free. And with the mind of a child, of course, she says, well, Daddy, why don't all buildings have this? Daddy, why? And so I leaned down, and I looked in her cute little face. And I said, oh, honey, that's because most people are poopy heads. What am I going to tell her, the truth? Well, you see, honey, there's this oil and coal cartel that controls all of energy policy, and they're haunting you in your dream. Like, she'll have nightmares. I can't tell her that. Poopy heads, that's what it's got to be. And if you look at the modern environmental movement, we have failed. We're the losers here. We're the good guys, and we're losing because it seems that most of environmentalism is trying to lead you to one inevitable conclusion, which doesn't work for me. This one doesn't help me. This is not good. This is not a good idea. And I realize that we're dumb. We human beings, I'm dumb, you're all dumb. We think we're smart, but we're not. And if you don't believe me, remember that we share 50% of our DNA with bananas. So that'll humble you down a little bit. I was driving the other day and I saw this bumper sticker, and I was going to run him off the road, but I didn't. And then I realized, you know what? You never see this bumper sticker shared with this bumper sticker. You never see the two together. Did I get the applause? I know causation's not correlation, but you get it. You get it. So this is the problem that we're facing, is that we knowingly put cancer-causing chemicals in our building. We do this knowingly. So we're clearly idiots. And to set the context for how dumb we are, I want to show you this video just to kind of start the afternoon off right.
Dangerous questions, because with our present knowledge we have no idea what would happen. Even now, man may be unwittingly changing the world's climate through the waste products of his civilization. Due to our release through factories and automobiles every year of more than 6 billion tons of carbon dioxide, which helps air absorb heat from the sun, our atmosphere seems to be getting warmer.
Now this video, first of all, it was directed by Frank Capra, who did It's a Wonderful Life, which is just kind of neat. And it stars a very young, very handsome Dick Cheney, which is weird. That's just weird to me. But this video is from 1958. Everything he says in the video is true. In fact, all the numbers are much worse. So what have we done since 1958? And the answer is really we've we've lost our window. We've lost our time. And if you think that climate change is this abstract thing that will happen sometime in the future, it's happening now. Last year, we had 400,000 people that died due to climate change. And I don't mean in an indirect way. I'm talking in a very direct way from drought and malaria and food disruption. And so 400,000 people. And I didn't know 400,000 people was a lot of people. I mean, it sounds like a lot to me, but I also know that we lose 8,000 a day to AIDS, right? So in the grand scheme of things, maybe it's not. Well, it turns out 400,000 people is a lot of people. 400,000 people is 2.5 times the amount of people we're going to lose to lung cancer here in the U.S. this year. It's 10 times the amount of people we're going to lose to breast cancer this year. So where's our ribbon? Can I design it? These are the kind of questions I have, basically. Can it be polka dotted? This is what I want to know, right? And it just led me to this inevitable conclusion that just by design, we're just the worst mammals ever. We're just like awful. Because first of all, the one person liked that joke. 400,000 people is more than we're going to lose to strokes, accidents, Alzheimer's, and diabetes combined this year. So you need to realize something. Everything you've ever bought, everything you've ever owned, it's still here. Like, we didn't jettison it to space. It's here. Like, remember in the 90s when you were really into Nirvana and you bought that flannel shirt? That shirt's here somewhere. I don't know where it's probably in New Jersey. I don't know where it is, but it's here. And remember when you were getting into shape and you bought those rollerblades and you did it for a week and then you're like, my knees hurt. They're here. They're here. They're probably bobbing in the ocean, basically. And because it's all still here. And tonight you're going to go out for dinner and maybe you're going to go get some nice sushi or something. And you're going to oh, what's this in my sushi? Oh, it's little bits of rollerblade. That's why. That's basically why. It's your fault. And it doesn't help that we brag about our dominion over man. I mean, like, we're sore winners. That's what we are, basically. And just by design, we're just awful creatures. Because first of all, we get tired at the drop of a hat. We cry for no reason. We're easily trippable. I mean, easily. You never see a zebra trip, do you? And we just die in just, the dumbest ways possible. It's just so annoying. And this is why your cat just looks at you the way it does. It's just, It's just fed up. And we're not getting better. We're not improving. We're not learning from our mistakes. Here, I'll give you an example. This was the world's largest man in 1903. And this was just some cop I saw in Newark. Do you see what I'm saying? We're not learning. And the warning signs have been there louder and louder, closer and closer together, and we're not hearing them. These last few years have also been a key moment because it's the first time ever that we spent more in dealing with the cost of extreme weather than we did on the federal education budget. $2.6 billion on federal education, $3 billion dealing with things like Hurricane Sandy. And as much as that seems like just an obscene amount of money, it's nothing compared to the $8 billion we spend subsidizing the oil and coal companies. So maybe we could just move the money from one pile and into the other. Maybe that's not a big deal. Because the act of building is disruptive. Every year we produce 3 tons of concrete for every single person on Earth. Every year we cut down 2 trees for every single person on Earth. And every year we produce 600 pounds of steel for every single person just in the U.S. And powering all this is not good vibes, but fossil fuels, and just an immense amount of fossil fuels. One company, Exxon, is sucking 4 million barrels of oil a day out of the ground every single day. And as much as that just seems like an absurd amount of anything, it's nothing compared to the 92 million that all the oil companies are sucking constantly out of the ground every single day. Sheikh Yamani famously said, the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. Right? The oil age isn't going to end because we ran out of oil. It's just going to get harder and harder to get, more and more difficult. And that's what you've been experiencing. And so far, we've been the proverbial frog in the boiling pot of water, right? It's kind of snuck up on us a little bit. But now that you're aware of it, now that you know about it, well, now it's just going to get uncomfortable. You know, it's just going to be an awkward conversation, basically. If you were an astronomer and you thought that the sun went around the Earth, which, by the way, totally doesn't do that. It doesn't do that at all. It's the other way around. But if you thought that, you'd do some pretty bad astronomy, wouldn't you? And that's basically what we've done. We've done some basically pretty bad buildings. We've done really awful buildings. It turns out all the while we've essentially been building this kind of dead, lifeless skeleton. And what we should have been building is the whole creature. Because the creature respirates. It produces its own energy. It processes its own waste. And a few of us, we're dabbling. I mean, we're playing with it, but we're getting there, right? We're getting better at it. But what I do know is that this is a dead end. I mean, it's a pretty building, granted, but a metal building in Los Angeles? You're telling not one person at a meeting said, hey, maybe that's a dumb idea. Like, nobody said anything? Plus, I've seen how people react when we put them around living buildings, natural buildings, buildings that grow out of their sight. They actually reach out and they pet them. It's bizarre to me. They touch them. So that's what we need, buildings that are rooted in the soil the same way nature does. That's how nature builds. As you're sitting here, seemingly idle, your bodies are a whirlwind of activity. These big black things you see, those are called leukocytes. And they're fighting off infection because, frankly, half the people in this room are sick. And their gross, disgusting germs are attacking you as you sit here. And your body just fights them off. It's amazing, right? And those little shimmering things you see, those are little energy packets your body's sending out. It's called cholesterol. By the way, some of you have a little too much energy packets. You got to cut down on the cholesterol. But it's amazing, right? So your body's very much this habitat, this incredible habitat. As you sit here, there's 1 to 2 pounds of bacteria living on and in you. It's actually kind of gross. I've been meaning to tell you, you got 2 pounds of bacteria on you. It's disgusting. But still, your body's very much this habitat. But your body's also this incredible machine. Pumping, processing, filtering, all while you're just, sitting there shifting in your chair. It's incredible. And it turns out, John Mayer was right. Your body's a wonderland. It's this incredible wonderland. I mean, some of you more than others. But still, it's this wonderland. It's incredible. Every day, your body's producing 50 trillion new cells to make up for the ones that have died. Every day, you're pumping 1,900 liters of liquid, which you then pee out. It's incredible, right? Every day, you're breathing in 11,000 cubic liters of air. You take the oxygen out and you expel carbon dioxide, which the plants then take and then do the reverse in return. It's wonderful. And as I'm telling you all this, your big brains are processing this information at 170 miles an hour, faster than any known computer. Holding up that big skeleton of yours is a structural system that's 4 times the strength of concrete. And half the weight, by the way. You can even produce your own energy. At your peak, like on a bike, you can produce 2,000, you've seen the Matrix, 2,000 watts of energy. It's incredible. And powering all this is not fossil fuels, but food, glorious food. And in your lifetime, you're going to eat about 50 tons of the stuff. So every now and again, eat a salad. That's all I'm saying. And as a byproduct of all of this, all of you are farting 14 times a day. All of you. I'm telling you. And you're like, not me. Yes, you. All of you. And I know what else you're thinking. It's like a balloon's worth. It's like this much. So right now I'm picturing a balloon over all your heads, which just makes me happy. Our buildings respond to none of this. They ignore all of it. They're just dead, lifeless spaces. They're just filled with known cancer-causing chemicals. And then we put in windows and make sure they don't open. And then we put our kids in there for 8 hours a day and make them learn how to read good. And it doesn't work. We then surround the site with more dead, lifeless materials, and we make hot places even hotter. And then we just kind of crap these houses out and ignore where's the sun and where's the wind. And this is why the system doesn't work. This is why the whole economic thing every 8 years is just teetering all the time, because it's not sustainable. So let's reverse this trend. Let's build living buildings, buildings that are teeming with aliveness, with life, just like your own bodies. Real, not this fake life, real life. Because if you look at plants very closely and you pay attention to them, it almost looks like they're alive. Because they're alive. It's a joke. They're alive. They're plants. We're not the first creatures to build. Lots of creatures build things. This is the paper wasp. It builds its nest in a matter of days. It takes wood pulp from local trees, mixes it with saliva, and makes a form of cement. And it can change the hydrology of the cement based on the humidity in the air. And it does it on this cool hexagonal grid, by the way. This is the weaver bird. It builds its nest in a matter of hours. It takes local grasses and uses its own body as a tape measure. By the way, it makes the opening big enough so the bird can get in and out, but none of its predators. And it builds this on this cool, tripod shape. And what do? We put up bird houses everywhere. It's insulting. I mean, they're building out of tripods, and we're putting up Section 8 housing. It's like... This is why they're pooping on your car. Basically, that's why. This is a butterfly egg. This is an owl egg. Just a wealth of color and form and geometry awaiting us if we just open our eyes and pay attention to it. Incredible mathematical formulas just there for the taking. All told, about 3.8 billion years of research and development. All we have to do is promote living buildings, buildings that grow, buildings that we feed and nourish the same way we feed and nourish ourselves. And we're just scratching the surface to what that means, but we're getting better. But what it takes is for all of you to put this in your mindset as a priority, as something important. So when you see this should be your inspiration for what a skyscraper could be, because that's how nature builds. Nature is strong. Nature will kick your butt every time. And how do we build? Just the exact opposite way. Just brute force, shove it in there. It doesn't work. And we look at nature as this obstacle, like this thing we have to get around. And we do it badly. We just don't do a good job of it. And the results are just absurd. They're just weird. And just, you have to realize something. No matter how many resources you have, if you use them the wrong way, they will never be enough. Our resources have a value. Some of the resources even have a history. And if we pay attention to the history, we can benefit. But we don't do that. You've all seen developments like this with these cute little names. And you basically know that here they've just decimated the creek to build whatever nonsense they built here. And here they just drove out all the wild horses to build whatever nonsense they built here. And really, frankly, I'm terrified to think of what they cut down here. So this has been my charge. This has been what I've dedicated my career to, right? For the last 25 years, I'm an architect, and I've been building buildings, and that didn't go fast enough. So then I started writing books, and now I'm at 11 books already. And now last year, I joined my old friends at the International Living Future Institute. And what we do is we have a rating system called the Living Building Challenge. And the Living Building Challenge says, well, if most buildings are bad and green buildings are less bad, we don't want to do that. We want to be good. How do we be good? And we set that as a bar. And now we have hundreds of living buildings in 30 countries all over the world that are aiming to be good. And what does good mean? Well, good means really 5 things for us. Simply, anyway. First, that every building is going to generate its own energy, because that's what nature does. 2, every building is going to grow a portion of its own food, because that's what's needed. 3, every building is going to process its own waste. This could be composting, or it could be bioremediation, or something else. 4, every building is going to clean its own water. It could be a living machine. And number 5, we do automatically if you do the first 4 correctly. We sequester our own carbon. That's what nature does. That's how nature builds. I was talking to a developer, and I said, oh my God, we're going to grow food on the outside of the building. It'll be amazing. It'll just be so beautiful. And all I got was wave after wave of excuse why we couldn't do that. He said, you can't grow food on the building. The homeless people will eat it. Feeding homeless people fruits and vegetables. What will they say to you? You'll be pilloried in the press. I didn't know where he was going with this. And I said, you know what? Calm down. If you start to see this everywhere, we'll take it down. We'll take the food down. But in the meantime, let him eat. What's the big deal? Besides, there's probably other crops you could grow that'll make you more money anyway. That's what we need to get to. We need to get to the point where this is just seen as an opportunity for what it is. That's really what's needed. Where developers start to realize how to sell this better. That instead of just telling you about their little fitness rooms and gyms and nonsense, they could sell you on the fresh oxygen the building produces. And I hope you all help join me in establishing this as a new sense of victory for the 21st century. Thank you very much.